Right, I want to recap what we covered in the lesson. So we're starting off with a cube, pressing N to open up the transform panel, check background images, add image, open image, desktop. What's it called? Sort it by the date, Tpose but press 5 so you can see it, and the numeric keypad. Change the image to the front, move it along the horizontal to line it up with the center line. If you scroll in on the nose, you can tend to get a pretty central point there. If you hold down shift while you're scrolling left and right, it lets you do smoother incrementations. Now we're going to set this view to front, so that's front view. Now we need to do another image, add image. We're going to reuse the same image and we're going to set this to right ortho. Again, set it to front, aligning her up straight down the middle of her center of gravity. Right, now I want to scale this cube down a bit, probably move it up a bit to about, let's line it with a waist. I'm going to select face select mode, just grab the cube on the top, want to I've just had an idea, if we can find it, in the preferences section. If we can find it, what's it called? Navigate. Sidetracked here. Never mind. There's a thing which will duplicate the controls, but it's not important. Anyway, we're going to extrude straight up, EZ to just under her arms, EZ to the top of her shoulders. Let's make her hips wider, so we'll scale that along the x-axis, X. Just trying to line it up with the figure. If you're struggling to see them, you can adjust the opacity here a bit. Hang on, that's the wrong opacity, it's that one's opacity. So you can fade it in, fade it out, so you can see what you're doing. Right, I'm going to inset for a neck, which is I to inset and scale in. Then with the face still selected, scale in a bit more, extrude Z, then extrude and then enter, then S to scale, because we need to get the bottom of the head in, so scale it down a bit. Extrude Z, that's probably the top of the head, scale that down a bit. Let's just check our inside view. Inside view, you can see we're doing reasonably good. I'm going to get onto edge select mode and Alt Shift right click and scale along the Y. S Y. We're just pulling in a waist. I'm going to select that face and just pull that to the right like that. I'm going to select this front face and just move that back for the neck. I'm going to drag this which is going to be the chin, I think, so we'll just drag that downwards, and we'll drag that which is going to be the top of the head forwards and probably down a bit. Doesn't need to be too accurate at this stage, we're just roughing it out. Let me just turn on ambient occlusion, which just kind of fakes up some shading, just makes it a little easier to work. Right, I want to add a vertical loop, Control R, which is like ring, Control R, and as you move your cursor around it, it'll go horizontal as you go to the right hand side of her face, or vertical as you go to the top of her face. So I'm going to left click and hit enter to OK it. Now I'm going to select this to make a leg with, so I'm going to go I to insert, then drag it down, and S to scale it up a bit, move it down a bit further, scale it in a bit, drag it down a bit, scale it in a bit, extrude Z, probably drag that way a bit, then extrude Z, that's EZ, and let's scale that down a bit, just move it out. Now the foot I'm just going to extrude down vertical again, extrude Z till it reaches the ground. Right, now we've got one leg. Now if we look at it side on, it's nothing like, so we need to drag some of these back. The way I grew that selection, I've just got the bottom face under the foot selected. If you do hold down Control and plus, it grows around the selected area. Right, I want to grab this loop. I've just selected one edge and Alt Shift right click. Alt Shift right click and it selects that loop. I want to scale it along the Y, scale Y. Just move that back. Same again with that one. Alt Shift right click, scale Y, scale Y. I'm moving that point too. Let's move that in a bit. I'm going to cut it in half to mirror it in a minute, so I'm not overly concerned about it being too perfect. Right, let's chop her in half. So I'm going to go into face select mode, press limit selection to visible, with depth buffer, snappily titled. I'm going to use a box selection, so I'm going to go B for box, then you drag a box over that entire area and it will have selected everything front and back. Then I need to delete the faces. Delete the faces, hit delete and faces, and now I'm going to throw on a mirror modifier. So we go over to the spanner, add modifier, mirror, and it should be on X to begin with. You might want to turn on clipping. Clipping sticks the left hand side and the right hand side together. So if you drag it apart with clipping on, it does that. If you turn off clipping and you move them apart, they come apart separately. Let's turn those back on. See, so now we've got both sides of created at the same time. I think she's too wide around the waist, so I'm just going to drag that in a bit. I also want it to come out more here, so I'm going to do Control R to add in a loop like we did before. Get back into front view. I'm using 1 and 3 to switch between front view and side view. I'm going to put another loop about there and drag that out a bit. Right, and we can start looking at her shoulders. Now the way I would approach her shoulder, I would inset a little bit and then pull it out that way. I'm not happy with that, I don't like that. I think if I add a loop all the way up, like that, that's going to work better. Now let's select that and inset that, and drag it out a bit, then extrude to an elbow, and then extrude X to give us the elbow join, extrude X to the wrist, extrude X, wrist join, and then extrude all the way to the end of the hand. Now I want to start grabbing some of these edges. So into edge select mode and just start moving them down till they line up with the model. Hoping we're still recording. seems a bit tedious, but it is worth it doing it this way, because you will get really good topology out of it. So I'm just throwing in a loop there because I'm going to want to be extruding a thumb out of it at some point. Right, let's give her a backside. I'm going to rotate that, I think. So we do rotate X, G to grab. Maybe just pull that a bit. I think we need another loop. So Control R, then drag it up to where I want it, and let's just select that loop. Go into side view. Maybe move it up a bit, and let's move that up a bit. Right, I also want to make that ankle's a bit thinner, so I'm going to scale down there. Actually, I'm going to turn my mirror modifier off so I can see what I'm doing, or you can see what I'm doing better. Scale Y, scale Y. Let's move that down a bit. Let's add another loop about there and scale that along the Y axis as well. Scale Y. Something good starting point. Let's extrude a foot forwards. So let's go extrude Y. Then let's drag the top edge of that down. Tool there-ish. And extrude Y. It's kind of vaguely foot-like. Let's add a loop around the bottom of her shoe. Right, it's a bit wavy that, so I'm going to line it all up. So I need to scale it along the z-axis. So S for scale, Z for z-axis, and then 0, and that just lines our feet up a bit, and I want to drag the heel line up a bit, so I'm just selecting that, moving that up to there. We can probably grab that vert and the oh dear, that one and that one, that one and that one. Just drag those down a bit. Okay, gaining on it. So now we've vaguely got it roughed out. I think the head needs a bit more tweaking. Just zoom in on her head. Side view. Just drag it back, and let's grab that line. Get to side view. Grab it upwards. That's probably something along the lines. And there we have a very, very low poly Tpose figure. Do a save. Save as desktop, let's call it Tpose figure. Save as Blender file. Right, once we've got it like this, we can add in more topology to make her smoother, because at the moment in smooth mode she looks basically like rubbish. So we're going to use a subdivision surface modifier. So I'm going to apply my mirror modifier for the time being. We can always chop her in half and work on her some more. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier, and that's at level 1. Let me just turn off the background images for a minute. And you see how it's rounded around. If we're to make this topology visible, we've actually got quite a clean mesh. Now, I think her head's too thin, so let's just turn that off for the time being. That one. Let's just select her head. Put it into edit mode, face select mode. Let's grab that loop and scale her head widthwise. Let me put a background image on. Scale X. Scale X. I'm also thinking if we make the top of the head a bit wider, that might help. Scale X. Ooh, too much? It's probably in the vicinity. I think if we had a loop around the middle of a head, that might help. Scale X. Scale X. That's a bit more head shaped. Let's turn that on by doing the eye. This eye turns the modifiers on and off. Now the thing with 3D modelling, one of the things with 3D modelling is you don't want to add in more polygons and triangles and quads than you need to before you're ready to. But that's quite a low level of detail. So in object mode, I'm going to apply that. My phone going buzz. And we've got that's made into a permanent change now. I'm going to save this as a different model, so I'm going to save as Tpose figure 1, save as Blender file. That means I can always go back to the earlier version should I choose. Right, what I was trying to explain about this, I've got a. I'm going to turn this off so I'm not seeing all these wires when I'm working on it. Turn off my background image again and mess with my ambient occlusion a little bit. Right, background image. Right, now we can get in and start modifying her a bit more artistically. So with the figure selected, it's worth checking we've applied the scale. Object, apply, scale, which just makes it better for sculpting. And then we go into sculpt mode. Now we're going to leave Dino Topo switched off for the time being and just get the grab tool, which we adjust the size with the bracket key, and we're just going to tweak and adjust the edges of the model so it fits better what we're actually looking at with our reference images. It's actually quite a good way of practicing any kind of sculpting, working over a reference image. I find if I make these tools quite big, you can get a bit of a feel to how to control them. Zooming in and zooming out with the scroll wheel. And here it's got a bit of a weird shadow going on, so I'm going to try and remove it. I used Shift just to smooth it out a little bit. I'm going to try and do the same thing around there. Don't like that. Don't like it, so Control Z to undo. That's not doing too badly. Let's have a look at the shape of the head. This is all using the grab tool. It's quite like plasticine or clay. Right, so that's not a bad start. The object mode. So if we look at her in edit mode, we've got 1056 faces, which isn't bad for a low polygon base model, and we've also got quite neat topology. So we've got lots of quite nice square quads. Quads are all square. You know what I mean. I'm just smoothing out some of these things. Let's give her a bit of a back. Just going to drag some of these around as well. This is where you need to start looking around your model. Sometimes it's nice to put these matte cap shaders on, because it just lets you view the surface and really kind of smooth out any glaring imperfections and try and make it look good. So it's looking like an Oscar at the moment, isn't it? Ooh. Editing, tweaking, undoing. I'm going to turn down the strength of this. See, at the moment it's all the way up. I'm just going to, oops, smooth. Where's smooth? Smooth, 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 smooth. There we are. This is, the smooth tool is what you're accessing when you hold down shift. So I'm going to turn its strength right down so I can smooth out some of the hardness of the corners. A little bit more controlled. Let's try a different material. One of these is skin. It's worth keep checking. Where's our background images again? Let's keep working on the shapes. So we've lost quite a lot of hip. Tweaking and refining. Now what it's nice to do at some point is you put on another subdivision surface modifier. You don't necessarily want to apply it because you can end up making too much topology too soon. In flight. So I'm just adding some shape in, and you can always kind of smooth it back. Let's grab that. Right, I want to make a feet wider. I'm gonna do that in edit mode. So let's just box select the soles of feet. So in face select mode it works better. So B, just like that, foot, and B. Oops, I'll press B. Just like that, foot, and then Control plus to grow the selection. Couple of times. I've not got the mirror modifier on at the moment, so I want to change my pivot point from active element to individual origins. Scale it along the X, SX. I'll do. Right, she's got feet like Herman Munster. I'll fix that later. Right, so that's our base mesh kind of complete. I'm going to turn off background images and turn off wireframe because I don't need to be looking at that at the moment. Let's just do a save. Save has Tpose figure 2. Object mode. Right, and the point of making a base mesh like this is you can reuse your topology to make clothes quite easily. Excuse me. How I selected that area, I right clicked and went Alt Shift right click and selected a loop in face select mode. Then I grew the selection with Control and plus. Yeah, that'll work as a top. Right, so I want to duplicate this selection. So I'm going to do Shift D for duplicate, then Enter, and then P for separate, and separate selection. And now I've got this as a separate item. Let's turn off matte caps for a second. Let's give ourselves some new materials. Base can be, I don't know, that kind of colour. I want everything that kind of colour. And then the top I want to be a different colour. So new material, call it top. Let's assign it. Let's make it a different colour. Let's see, we've got a completely perfectly fitting shirt or something. No. Now let's have a go. Let's say I want to work into this. We've got a few options there. We can go, actually let's apply it scale. Apply scale and then go into sculpt mode. Then we can start working into it like we were doing previously, and just giving it some of that. We'll just kind of move it slightly away from the skin so it doesn't look like it's completely melted together. Now we'd also have the option of using Dino Topo and working into it and going crazy. What I would do if we're gonna do that would be no, we'll Dino Topo it, but we'll save a version of just the shirt on its own. Let's say we wanted to put that into Sculptress. Export, let's use an object file. Export object, let's call it Tpose top. Just stick that on the desktop. Let's have a look at this. Can we load an object? Import an object, Tpose top, open, new scene. Now we've brought in the whole model here, which is not what I wanted to do. And the reason that that's happened is because when I exported it, file export object, I didn't have selection only checked. So let's export that again, because it exported the entire thing on us, which you might want to do or you might not want to do. Tpose top, open, new scene. And then we've got our top in here, and then you can start drawing and doing all this stuff we can do in here. Let's just keep drawing. Which is, I don't know, I always preferred ZBrush myself, but we don't have that on the college computers. So you can flatten and draw and work into it. What other tools have we got in here? Material. Ooh, pretty. Again, like Blender's matte caps, you've got a range of different materials which are useful to sculpting, because they help visualize the surface of the model a little bit better. You can just sculpt away. Or you can do this exactly the same thing back in Blender. So you would go into sculpt mode and stick on Dino Topo and smooth. But again, then you can start drawing into it. Let's string the brushes down. I've got symmetry on at the moment. Let's turn off symmetry lock. And what's nice with this, you can actually start sculpting in some creases into the fabric. Let me turn on smooth. I've turned right down. So you can start kind of drawing in folds and stuff like you would have in real clothes. Just working into it. What's nice about Blend is you can turn on the other model, turn off the other model underneath. Working in. Get the idea. But you can do the same for all sorts of clothing. I'm going to stop it there because I've rambled on now for 25 minutes, 31 minutes. That's plenty for one tutorial.